Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. In this episode, we're taking a look at episode 6 of IBO. That's called, I had it here somewhere, As For Them. There's some interesting character developments that were going on. And again, what's very interesting about IBO is there really doesn't need to be a lot of action for there to be a lot of action. There's a lot going on in the world of IBO, and it's constantly moving, and so there's a really good pace to the show, even if there's not any mobile suit battles. Okay, we are starting with the two characters from Gjallarhorn, and it's so bad when I forget their names, but it's the Shargarma duo here. So it's interesting that the idea here is to kind of let them go because they feel like, oh, we know where they're going. They're going to Earth. Cadelia is aboard the ship with them. And by them, I mean Tekkadan, who we've seen kind of build up into the last episode with the space battle. But anyway, instead of continuing to engage, they're just, no, let them go. We know where they're going. Another cool world building scene, and there's a lot of this going on, but we have the crew, and they're mainly kids that are like working on the mobile suit. And again, this is like a mobile suit from like 300 years ago. They kind of talk more about it, talking about how it uses nano-laminate. So cool to hear about, the technology that's being used in this, and there's even more of that later on. But it's cool to get the background. They're starting here with the mobile suit, but then it dives more into the Calamity War. And it goes back to the Gjallarhorn dudes, looking at a computer, I guess, about the Gundam Barbatos. So this is what's pretty cool about this, is it's a screen kind of showing technical specifications of the Barbatos itself. I don't know how much of this, by looking at it, really means too much. So there could be some cool Easter eggs in here. But they have the name of the Gundam Barbatos. It's a Gundam frame. They talked about them. There was 72 of them that were made. That it was just a version of the different Gundam frames that existed 300 years ago during the Calamity War. So, again, I'm very early and new to IBO, but it'd be really cool if we don't get a lot of scenes of, like, the past during the Calamity War, like flashbacks. I wonder if that could be a whole other story they tell in the future. The other piece of technology in here, and we've heard it before, it's about the Ahab reactors. So I guess it's novel for this Gundam Barbatos to have 2 of them. This was a pretty cool scene here. Mikazuki is that guntagonist that I coined, where it's a protagonist for the Gundam series that is almost like they're bulletproof, like emotionally and heroically. And I find that very interesting. But there are times, though, where they always lean good, right? It's like if there was a chart, that chaotic, good, evil chart of a Gundam protagonist, they tend to be almost, but not necessarily chaotic, only if chaos kind of comes to them. But they lean good, but they're lawful, but they're also very stoic. And in this case, what I found interesting was she was asking, this character, I forget their name, is scared about, that they're going to battle, that they're going to be going to Earth. And she's like, well, why aren't you scared? And he shows that bracelet. It's the bracelet that popped up earlier in the series, and I'm wondering what the significance is. We know that she made him, or they both have a bracelet. Just a little more to them. But for him to speak in that way, to really give her this confidence based on something that it's almost like he's lying, but he's taking seriously the token, the momentum. And I find that to be a very endearing part of Mikazuki here. Oh yeah, and there's the bracelet right there if you were curious. Okay, with Tekkadan talking next steps, what was interesting about this was they decide not to go to Earth, and instead they're gonna meet up with Tewaz, and I didn't really, I should have watched the subtitles so I could have got the name down, which I guess is like a company out of Jupiter, although they describe him as more of a mafia, which I find that pretty neat. It could be one of those where they're just kind of a big player. You don't mess with them, they won't mess with you, but you can make deals with them, rub each other's backs. But it's one of those things where they're not going to want you to be in power. So for Tekkadan to want to make a name for themselves, it's a good idea to align with them. Anyway, they're trying to leverage that relationship, which could be scary to get to Earth or for protection. So, and that's what's interesting here. So instead of the Gjallarhorn dudes want to get to Earth, they're taking their time. There's no eventually they're going to get to Earth, but at the same time, they're scheming in the meantime, not going to Earth, trying to figure out, okay, what do we want to do to protect ourselves, on the way there. Okay, and so Fumito, there's this character, the lady in the blue. Something could be going on here, and maybe you guys know. Isn't she like some sort of assistant to Gedalia? She's just been helping her out as she, came to this facility on Mars. In this episode, they even pronounced them the Crise group instead of Christ group, which I heard early on, but that could be me. But anyway, getting back to what I was getting at. So they were trying to fix the communication system aboard this ship. She was able to fix it. But what's interesting, and then they say, hey, you can help be the communications person here. But what's interesting is at one point, I think it's Orga or whoever else was in command at the time said, hey, can you stay here with the controls? I'm going to head out. And we don't see her again. And I know I'm jumping ahead, but we don't see her again until something happens and a ship comes in contact with them. And so it's almost making me think, okay, if they're spending time like getting to know this character is doing things related to communication, then we don't see the character again until they run into a ship. And I guess it's an authority from Mars, maybe. I didn't really understand that exactly. But basically what I'm getting at here is it seems like there's something going on behind the scenes with this character that can, further mess up the plans. And talking about the Calamity War again, we get some cool flashback scenes because this could potentially be, I guess, maybe the look of the government or whatever 300 years ago. I kind of like that idea of, and look, execution, like kind of showing what the government was like and the way they're dressed, all that stuff. It would be cool again to see, the future, the past of like certain fiction in the first place. Because it's fun to design, just thinking creatively of like, what would it look like based on what exists at any certain point. But this shot, I think, was shown before, and I don't know if that was supposed to be in context of what was going on present day or the past. So I don't know if, it has a filter on it to make it look older. So I don't know if they were just using that just to use it or it's that same shot. And then another interesting thing with the character building on top of the world building is, understanding that Mikazuki doesn't know how to read or write. Actually, most of the kids here don't. And it's almost kind of even further unfolding what Gedalia is understanding it's like for people on Mars to live, because it's more like there's really no time to go to school. You kind of got to work to survive, do things to survive. No one's really getting proper education. That's just how it is. Kind of even, it's like the story is even further supporting the idea that Mars needs better conditions, and that's maybe because it doesn't have its independence. So that's why it's interesting to do kind of this subplot character building that actually informs us of the world these characters are in. But then it makes me wonder, and there seemed to get into more discussion about that here in a little bit, but how much of Mikazuki learning to read and write might change the character he is. Maybe he can figure out more, he's just trusting. Yeah, see, this is that part I'm talking about. There's something going on with this lady. Hey, and if you've seen this, you probably already know. Yeah, it's that dude. We see this dude earlier on. He's like really the guy pulling the strings. Here's a shot of a ship and Mars, just kind of get a good look at that. And then we're introduced to this character that I think is going to be built out into another main character. He just seems like, he seems to be a pilot that was just part of that attack on the, Crise, didn't I say they pronounced it differently here? That base, anyway, but he's just talking about how he saw that Gundam in action and how crazy it was. And I think we're going to see more of this character. I think he's going to be a main antagonist, but you never know. He could become a good guy. All right, and then they have where the kids are learning how to read and write. And it's very interesting. We see, again, the depth they go into the character dynamics, because you have kids teasing others for how they're reading and writing, and then you have one of the kids that might be a little older or mature having to step up and explain. There's no adults around. There's no one here to kind of like teach the kids behavior, and as a parent, I understand that that's a big deal. You have to kind of guide behavior. And so it's interesting that they brought that up here. And when Gedalia is helping the kids, she's like, as she's helping them, you can see with those two kids in the back, she's like staring at their backs because they have that, there's a name for it, the system that's installed in them that they had to have surgery for. And one kid said how he hates it, he won't use it again. Another kid said he likes it, he'd like to get it installed again. I guess as they grow, maybe they have to get it repaired or different variations. But again, really just opening up that world, just so much is going on here. And then they show Orga kind of watching Mikazuki. Mikazuki turns and sees him there. And there's a little talk here between, I think it's what, Biscuit and Orga. And it's almost making me question Orga and like what his actual intent is. Yeah, it's Orga. I knew that. And the other guy's McGillis. I got to remember that, the blonde guy. I'm really bad with names. But he talks about how it seems like Mikazuki's always watching him. And then, you know, figuring out or understanding right now that he's learning to read and write. It's almost like, has he created this kind of weapon, and has he given him maybe bad thoughts or ideas along the way that he's not realizing that he's acting on? And maybe if he learns more about the world, he'll realize maybe Orga really has something planned. I find that interesting. And then they talk. And even after the talk, it sounded a lot better because he's really asking, you know, he asked Mikazuki about reading and writing and how he wants to learn, how he wants to read books. He wants to grow vegetables, have his own farm. And Orga's like, yeah, the plan is we'll get you there. That's the plan. The things we're doing right now is so you can have that type of future. And so with him kind of promising a good outlook in the way that he does, it almost sounds like there is no bad intention behind. But maybe he's, again, bringing this up because he's planting that seed, even for the audience to think, oh, okay, maybe he really is good, even though it sounded like he's questioning what Mikazuki is doing. But at the end, I could be looking too deeply into it, but I really like these character dynamics and how we're learning about them. And so the episode ends where there's an alert where, again, it's this dude. Okay, so yeah, it's the guy from the first episode, the ex-president of the Christ Security Group. I had to look that up. Just demanding the ship back, and he's in a ship. So, would that lady potentially get that attention through the communication thing in order to maybe just stall them? Or, is it just a coincidence, a fake out to make us think she planned something? But anyway, that just about does it. That was episode 6 of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. This is just a great show in general. The story that's unfolding, the character dynamics, it's a lot of build up, but it's like build up with action. And for me, action might not be two mobile suits fighting. Action could be more information about the world we're in for me to go, oh, that's why. And then, oh, that's like, I love being able to learn all these things as I go, like I'm reading a book, and I hate to talk on something topical like The Acolyte, but the difference with the show like that for me is it's just dangling weird things in front of you a lot of times. So you're like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you get cool action. But this, I feel like the action is earned even when it's light because they're planting little seeds that then unfold and you're like, was this interesting to see unfold? I don't know. I just love this type of world building. So anyway, enough gushing. Still got a lot of episodes to get through. Anyway, if you like what you saw, please give this video a like, subscribe, share it, all that stuff. Thanks to all the supporters that make this possible. So check the links in the description for stuff like that. And yeah, until next time, have a good one. We'll see you.